coming to you live from the Built Ford Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network. And wherever on the free Odyssey app. Good Tuesday morning. Very busy day in New York sports yesterday, locally and nationally. You had a very frustrating Knicks loss last night to the Miami Heat. You had football stories. After we get off the air, we find out more about what was going on with Abdul Carter as he's sleeping, and then he's denying that he's sleeping, and then after that, he's deleting his tweets that he's denying that he's sleeping. So you've got that. Then you roll into CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, who sit out a series last night in Monday Night Football for whatever was going on with them, and the Cowboys roll in their 4-5-1 and maybe back in the mix. And then Mr. Clandestine, Aaron Glenn, who will never tell you who the quarterback is. Well, that got out there yesterday as well in the afternoon that the Jets are going to go to Tyrod Taylor. So we'll see if he actually confirms that, or we'll go ask Diana Rossini. Go ask Rich. Go ask Diana. Go ask Brian Costello. Go ask Mark Cannizzaro. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Shot out of a cannon this morning.
Yeah.
I like it. And by the way, guess who also showed up last night? Quinnen Williams.
Yeah, sack and a half.
Yeah, sack and a half, and actually 5 quarterback hits. I mean, he had his best game of the year for the Dallas Cowboys.
Of course.
And I think the Dallas Cowboys, as Troy Aikman was saying last night, feel pretty good about Logan Wilson and Quinnen Williams being added to that defense, because it looked a little bit better. However, they were playing Geno turnover, Smith.
What a mess.
And, it was not great out in Vegas. I don't know what they're going to do moving forward and trying to, advance that thought process forward. Does Pete Carroll get another year? Does he not get another year? What are they doing? It just, when I see Mark Davis up in that suite with all those beautiful women standing around,
that's our king.
He ain't losing.
Yeah, yeah.
He may be losing on the field. He ain't losing off the field. I can tell you that.
He's surrounded by beautiful women. He eats at P.F. Chang's every day. He has a haircut that's so bad that no one tells him about because everybody loves him so much. I mean, He really is. He's what I strive to be every day.
Those women look fake in there. They look like they were AI women.
Yeah, they may be. He may. I mean, he's got a lot of money. He may have built some robots to hang out with him all the time. He needs to build a robot quarterback, though, to play better than the one he's got.
It was like Model Central in that suite last night.
Yeah,
but you're right. So here you go. So you got Abdul Carter coming out. You got Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. I mean, is it that hard just like for 6 months out of the year, just to be like a part of a team and to have some level of responsibility to your teammates? I mean, Was that not ingrained in you at Bellport? Was that not ingrained at me at East Islip? Was that not ingrained at me at the University of Maryland under Coach Claiborne, under Coach Ross? Yes, and yes.
Yeah, so I talk about this all the time, that I am deathly afraid to this day of being late for anything because of Bellport football, because we used to start at whatever time it was, like sharp, and you had to be in what was called the horseshoe. We would do this horseshoe where you line up in the horseshoe, and then you'd be standing there waiting for the coaches. The coaches would come out of their little thing, and then you start practice. If you were the guy who was running out of the locker room while the coaches had already come out, you were punished, you were ridiculed, you were embarrassed, you had to run laps. It was you were the worst person in the world for like that 20 minutes. And I never wanted to be that guy. And still to this day, that's in my head, like, don't be late because it's disrespectful and embarrassing.
All right, so part of that is the coaches. Part of it is also your own parents. True. Your parents that basically held you accountable, got you where you needed to be on time, and also told you don't screw up in school. And my dad was like, you screw up, Sal Champion's going to beat the hell out of you. So, I had to basically toe the line because of my dad. And I would just think, here's the thing about these players today. The money is so significant. And I don't necessarily know that I would be any different. I think I still would care, but the money is so big and it's so different. And a lot of these kids are coming out of college, actually have already making money, and being signing big deals with deals with all these different colleges, because it's an arms race in college, for God's sake. So I think there is a level of entitlement, and there's a thought process that you've been told your entire life how great you are, and when you get to the next level, it's going to be a learning curve. And I always hear Tiki talking about how he hates rookies.
Yeah.
That he's very funny when he says those things. I mean, I actually loved working with rookies because I loved having an impact on those rookies. And if I could get the most out of them, especially like, say, a Wayne Corbett, it was like I would say it was probably the most impactful rookie I ever played with, because that kid, while he looked like a rookie, he didn't act like one. He wanted to be a part of everything. He wanted to be in the middle of everything. He wanted to be early. He needed to be early. He wanted to show to the coaches that he really cared. And there was a guy, he basically was an undrafted free agent. So there was no entitlement. There was no expectation. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And he had this inner toughness and fight about him, kind of like Joe Klecko. When I think of all these players that I've seen through the years, Tim Krumrie in Cincinnati, 10th round draft choice out of Wisconsin, was so pissed off that he fell to the 10th that in that same draft, my best buddy Dave Remington, he and Tim used to go at it in practice every single day because Tim was trying to prove a point that he should have been drafted in the 10th round while Dave was drafted in the first round. So they were fighting nose tackle to center every single day in practice, every day. So there is a level of entitlement to certain players that have to learn how to become a professional football player. And like I said, I was listening to Tiki yesterday. That's why I hate rookies, because they don't know. They just don't know yet. But you can't sit here and tell me that Jackson Dart has been late for any practices or any meetings. I just can't imagine that. And the reason I say that is because of the way he carries himself on the field, the way he carries himself off the field. And there's been nothing but quality things said about him since he's gotten here. So, yeah, rookies, it takes a while for them to learn how to become a pro, but really just to be a man.
Yeah,
and maybe Abdul Carter is one of those players it's going to take a little bit more. Maybe he comes back next year and he's even more effective and lives up to being the player that they drafted.
Now, I know that just him sleeping and not being there for the walkthrough shouldn't be turned into a referendum on Joe Schoen. But one thing I will say is that, Abdul Carter's been really disappointing, and people have kind of laid off it to a certain degree, saying, maybe he'll figure it out. He's young and this and that, whatever. The Giants have bigger problems. There's been issues, Jackson Dart and Cam Scadaboo were the attention thing. We were all thinking about them. Then we're thinking about Brian Daboll's firing, but now it's starting to turn on Abdul Carter a little bit, especially after this. So for a guy who's being evaluated as a general manager for the rest of the year is what we are hearing even more so. Now, you've got Deonte Banks, who is as bad of a defensive player as you could possibly have, that you traded up to get in the first round. You've got Evan Neal, who will never see the field again as a New York Giant. And now you've got Abdul Carter, who has played poorly and now is sleeping in the facility and apparently has been late to a bunch of meetings. And then Kayvon Thibodeau's been a C+ B- player since he's been here. I mean, look no further than those first-round picks as to why the Giants keep spinning their wheels. Now, yeah, they got Jackson Dart, but we've got video evidence that Joe Schoen wasn't as into Jackson Dart as Brian Daboll was. So I don't want to sit here and keep yelling and screaming about people's jobs, but I'm sorry. If you're firing the head coach and things don't change and you look around at this roster, does Joe Schoen deserve to... It might be the number one overall pick, for God's sakes, with the way they're trending. Does he deserve to make that pick? And it's hard to say that he does.
Well, I mean, this is one of the reasons why Abdul Carter is now coming under the spotlight. It's because of the questioning of Joe Schoen and the decisions he's made, the trades he's made. He brought Brian Burns here. That was a great one. There's some.
He's made some good moves.
I mean, he's definitely hit on some. But as you said, the top of the draft is really the eye-opening part of it, and it's a reoccurring theme now. And this is why Abdul Carter ends up being under the microscope, because he's Joe Schoen's pick. Now, when to be honest, when he selected Abdul Carter, all of us were like, this is great. And then we saw some stuff from him in training camp that looked like he's going to be unbelievable. He's going to be unblockable. And then we saw that Jet preseason game where he got leveled by the tight end for the Jets. And then the tackle, I don't know if it was Membu or not, just came over and just pounded him right into the ground. And that's when I wondered about the football, understanding and the IQ on the field. He's just not aware of things yet. It takes a while for young kids to learn. And he'll learn all the tricks of the trade. He'll learn where they're coming to block him from and how they're trying to block him and chip blocking him and all those things that all the great edge rushers have to learn. If I were him, instead of watching Micah Parsons films, I'd be watching Garrett films.
Myles Garrett.
Garrett films, because that guy is amazing. And that guy is the closest thing to Bruce Smith, if not even better than Bruce Smith. Because when you played Bruce Smith in Buffalo, he had the ability to contort his body to get around the corner lower than anybody I've ever seen, where his shoulder was like 6 inches off the ground when he was coming around the corner.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of athlete that Abdul Carter is. And hopefully, this is just the beginning of a stumble. It happens. And now he's got to grow up. Now people are looking at him. Now it's not about Scadaboo. It's not about Jackson Dart. Now it's about you. So we'll see how he reacts to this. Does he act like an entitled little jerk, or does he act like a grown man and goes out there and has some pride in himself and shows people that he belongs here?
Well, I mean, right off the bat, he was not acting right about it because, the Giants confirmed themselves that he was sleeping in the facility, and he was saying that was a lie, and he was doing recovery. And then he deleted all those tweets, and he was also, I saw that guy, Bobby Skinner, who's covers the Giants in his own way, podcast and everything else. He put out with that story, quote, posted it on X and said, maybe we should give him 56 now after missing a meeting or whatever. And Abdul Carter responded with like crying face emojis, like laughing. And I'm just like, come on, like get off of this now. Will you stop? Just get off of the social media and show up at a meeting on time. And by the way, you said all of us love the Abdul Carter pick. There was one man who saw through all of the film on
I'll use
all the Penn State film and said, I don't know about this guy. Looks too small to me. I don't like the pick. And that is noted NFL draft guru Albert Dukes.
Yeah, it was out there on social media. You put it out there.
very thin man for that position.
Yeah, he's got to bulk up. He's got to grow up. That's basically what he has to do. I mean, you could probably say the same thing about Kayvon Thibodeau when he first got here.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought he was a little bit bigger. I mean, I just don't understand how he looks like Edward Scissorhands out there with all that crap he's got all over him. I mean, he's got like these giant things, contraptions all over his body. I don't know
where that came from, and I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to. I don't know. Maybe
I've never seen anything
maybe he's
like
protecting a bicep, protecting a tricep. I have no idea. I've never seen anybody play with those things. I didn't even realize you could actually play with those things.
And he's got two of them. It's not even the one arm. He's got two arms. Bionic man. But anyway, so that's where we're at with the Giants and Abdul Carter. And then, last night you see a similar situation with these guys, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. They sit out for the first series, and then they score. CeeDee Lamb scores a touchdown later, and then the three of them, Schottenheimer, CeeDee Lamb, and George Pickens, are laughing together and celebrating and everything else afterwards. But I mean, I don't know what sitting a guy out a series really does in the long run, because they're going to play in the game. All it does is maybe piss off someone who has the over catches or over yards prop bets.
People say, I get asked a lot, did you ever think about getting into coaching or anything? I said, no, never, ever, ever, ever. It's one thing if you're the starting quarterback and you can have a profound effect on your offensive players that you're playing with. You know what I mean? Like you could really have a big effect on those players. And I'd like to think over my career I did, but I could never, ever, I don't think, deal with the entire team and just deal with today's players. And just how today's players sometimes, and I'm not saying there haven't been players in the past that have been like this. There have been. That's one of the reasons why I didn't want to get involved from a coaching perspective. Just simply because it is, I mean, you're literally like a day from a collapse every day. You're a day from a collapse. You're always, as a head coach in the NFL, and I'm sure in college the same thing, you have, all it takes is one guy to do something really stupid, and the whole thing can collapse. And you got to have the enormous amount of credibility, and hopefully your best players, the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, the Lamar Jacksons of the world, lead by example and impact your football team so you don't have to deal with a lot of this nonsense. But I'm telling you, for 32 teams in this NFL league, there's probably 1,000 instances during the season where a coach has got to deal with something other than dealing with just the football aspect of a particular player. He's got to deal with some sort of discipline. And even when a guy is running, like a Donnie Mitchell for the Colts when he was with the Colts, running and letting the ball go before the goal line.
He was one of 3 guys who's done it this year.
I mean, it would my head would explode on the sideline. Like, you're practicing all week long.
Well,
we're preparing all week long. This is the hardest job there is in professional sports. Maybe hockey a little bit harder. But this is really, really hard. And you're going to screw this up by doing something so stupid that there is no explanation for it.
Well, how about Jonathan Gannon? So that happened with his running back, and then he lost his mind. Like you're saying, you would lose your mind. He ended up getting fined by his owner $100,000 because he was screaming at the player for doing the dumbest thing in the world.
It is, and that's the remarkable part of all of this. I mean, like, first of all, and I think Coach Cowher used to say this all the time, that it's a privilege to play in the NFL. It's a real privilege. That's the way maybe us old school guys look at it. Maybe it's a little bit different nowadays. Maybe it's more like we're entitled to play here because we're paying a lot of money and we're putting our bodies on the line. I think
it's somewhere in between.
And by the way, when you see the minefield of injuries and everything else that have come from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, now we're getting paid for all the problems that those guys dealt with.
Sure.
So it's definitely a different mindset. The agents are so much more aggressive nowadays, and it just undercuts everything that the coach is trying to do. And maybe that was part of the problem with Brian Daboll. Maybe he let some guys get away with things, and then all of a sudden a guy gets away with something here, a guy gets away with something there, and lo and behold, 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, somebody jumps off sides and gives the other team a first down. And next thing you know, the ball's in the end zone and your game's over and you lose.
Yeah, I mean, with all of that stuff going on that we have talked about, they were still, 1 or 2 plays away from having a winning record, which was crazy with the way that they were blowing games. All right, just getting started on this Tuesday morning on the Fan and CBS Sports Network. It is Boomer and Gio. We got an update coming up next. Do we have an update? I don't know. Do we have updates
Is there
today?
an update, Al?
Do we have updates today?
Yeah, we have a guy today.
We have a guy to do updates today. Okay.